The famished little girl I nourished returned days later with her mother. They now both reside with me. The Drexery colony, designated Sector 12, had succumbed to a gradual demise, not through conflagration or conflict, but through desolation. Severed supply routes, decaying infrastructure, and dysfunctional atmospheric processors had transformed it into a desolate expanse of static and skeletal remains. Tenacious holdouts stubbornly clung to existence. Relic relays, subterranean bunkers, and half-submerged maintenance hubs served as havens where individuals like Wesley Core desperately sought to evade the encroaching decay. Wesley, a hardened 36-year-old, was once a distinguished field engineer with the prestigious Commonwealth Expansion Corps. In the conflict's wake, amid resource depletion, after his squad fell silent and the forgotten territories languished, he remained steadfast. Deliverance was a forgotten concept. His sanctuary became a corroded atmospheric relay, half-submerged in crimson earth, fortified by reclaimed metal, improvised circuitry, and enduring labor. His directive was unambiguous: persevere, repair where feasible, salvage necessities, evade conflict. Every dawn, he meticulously inspected the air filters, carefully repositioned the protein fungi trays beneath the soft glow of heat lamps, and patrolled the outer limits with a salvaged rifle across his back. He wasn't constructing a legacy, merely postponing oblivion. As twilight approached, the light transformed from burnt orange to crimson, and a gust of wind heralded the piercing chirp of the alert system. A concise, urgent signal from the solar perimeter grid. Intrusion detected. Wesley halted, a gloved hand firmly gripping a filter mesh crate. Instinctively, his other hand sought the weapon propped against the wall. He activated the external cam monitor. Indistinct footsteps. Static crackled across the screen. Methodically, he tweaked the dial. In the space between two ruined solar towers, a silhouette stirred. Diminutive, faltering. He scrutinized it intently. The wind intensified its assault, whipping clouds of dust against the camera lens. The form faltered once more. A child, perhaps? Nay, more akin to one. Slender limbs, naked feet, skin tinged blue, sparsely veiled by tattered rags. It gripped a pipe, far too cumbersome for a childish plaything, yet clutched as such. Abruptly, it crumbled, merely a few meters from his threshold. Initially frozen, Wesley's hand lingered above the camera control, his gaze locked on the screen. His heart pounded with an unnatural sluggishness. A trap? An infected zone? It could be anything. Yet he rose to his feet regardless. Stepping outside, he was instantly assaulted by a piercing, arid cold. Securing his rebreather, he ventured out, his boots crunching on the frost-laden dust. The figure remained motionless. He cautiously knelt beside the body. A girl. Her skin, an ethereal indigo, was stretched taut over her frame. Though clinging to life, she was fading fast. Her breath, a fragile tremor. Then her luminous eyes, immense and gleaming in the crimson light, flickered open. Her gaze locked on him, imploring. "Food," she croaked, voice a mere breath. The accent, fractured yet distinct, conveyed her desperate need. A wave of nausea washed over Wesley. He had witnessed starvation's ravages during wartime deployments and ecological disasters. Yet this transcended mere hunger. This was a desperate struggle for survival against insurmountable odds. He scanned the desolate landscape. The horizon remained empty, devoid of any pursuers. Hers were the sole tracks etched in the snow. He gently lifted her, weightless as a feather. Just bones and a biting chill. She offered no resistance. Inside, he tenderly placed her on the bench by the heater. Silent, she lay curled, clutching that pipe fragment like a relic. Wesley removed his coat and headed towards the storage crate near the stove. He carefully filled the thermal pan with water, then added a nutrient cube. The broth was weak and artificial, but at least it was warm. He took a stale piece of ration bread and sat next to her. The girl recoiled slightly as he approached, yet remained still. "Here you go," he murmured softly. Clutching the bowl with unwavering hands, she savored each cautious sip and delicate bite. Wesley observed her guarded grip on the spoon, as if poised for a potential defense. Silent and unthankful, she sought warmth near the heat, cocooned in a weathered survival blanket. Sleepless, Wesley remained vigilant. He perched on the cot, rifle at his side, eyes fixed on the door. Each sound from beyond hinted at movement. Slavers, scum, wild beasts. He remained vigilant, prepared for anything. Dawn arrived, and she had vanished. The blanket was folded perfectly, the bowl cleaned and placed on the crate. The ground outside was untouched. He had no idea where she'd gone, or how far her frail state had carried her. He chose not to pursue. He lingered at the threshold, eyes sweeping across the vast horizon. 3 days onward, amidst the routine evening diagnostics, a knock echoed. No alarm, simply a knock, a trio of gentle taps, soft, almost fearful. Wesley stilled. His breath seized in his chest. Instinctively, his hand moved to his weapon, concealed from view. He approached the door, straining to hear. Another knock resonated. A pair. He warily cracked the door open this time, weapon poised but lowered. It was her, the girl, appearing gaunter than he remembered. Her eyes were hollow, lips severely chapped. This time, however, she wasn't unaccompanied. A towering woman stood behind her, stooped with exhaustion, her skin a profound violet blue hue. Enshrouded in tattered vestiges of probable ceremonial robes, once vibrant crimson and gold silks, now frayed and earth-stained, interwoven with synthetic cords and fragments of molten tarp, her form lay exposed. A contusion marred her bare shoulder. Cascading down her back, her long, silvery hair was matted into disheveled strands. Initially, she remained silent. Subsequently, she advanced and knelt, tenderly drawing the girl into her protection. "You nourished my child," she rasped, voice gravelly as if unused for an age. "Allow me to reciprocate, to cleanse or prepare meals, to infuse warmth into your dwelling." Wesley remained speechless, mind ablaze with conflicting thoughts. This deviated from the design. Solitude was his preference. Sustenance for more was untenable. Dared not court unwanted eyes. Could not bear the weight of responsibility. Yet she didn't plead. She sought no pity. She presented a different bargain. Honor, exchange, labor for refuge. He noticed the girl nestled against her mother, spent and silent. Her face was gaunt. Her tattered cloak, merely salvaged filter mesh cinched at the shoulders with crude copper wire, offered scant protection. "You won't last another night exposed," he declared. "Get inside." The woman paused, apprehension etched on her face, before rising deliberately, her grip tightening on the girl's small hand. They cautiously entered. Wesley secured the door, deactivating the external alarms. He extended a blanket to them. Wordlessly, they enveloped themselves in its warmth, huddling near the heater in stoic silence. He retreated to his alcove and settled against the supply box, observing them in the dim radiance of the orange heat lamp. After a while, the girl crept forward on her hands and knees, gently pulling on his sleeve. "Is there any soup left?" she whispered. "Mama hasn't had any." A lump formed in his throat. He nodded, rose, and approached the pot. It remained pleasantly warm. He ladled another bowl and carried it to her. With unwavering hands, she accepted it, her gaze locking with his. No gratitude, no entreaty, simply a raw, weary truth. Later, as Wesley feigned slumber, he caught her hushed murmur, a tender lullaby in her native tongue, as she nestled the girl into her makeshift bed. Then, in an ethereal voice, she intoned in Tan, "I am Suriran." Wesley's gaze remained fixed on the ceiling. "Wesley," he responded. Silence descended once more, but this time imbued with anticipation, suggesting a nascent beginning. Uncertainty mingled with trepidation, yet for the first time in ages, he felt a profound sense of connection. The atmosphere within the relay station now possessed a palpable presence, altered from its previous state. It wasn't oppressive or strained, but rather imbued with fullness, as if the room had contracted slightly due to the burgeoning life within. Wesley detected it instantly the following dawn. The blanket's drape over the bench lacked its familiar hang. The subtle drone of the power coils seemed muted by gentler respirations permeating the chamber. Emerging were nascent sounds, minute and delicate, the scuff of naked feet. The insulation mat groaned softly as the girl stirred in her slumber. A meticulously cleansed bowl sat atop the crate, abandoned. Wesley hovered over the protein trays, diligently trimming withered mushroom caps, yet his thoughts remained elsewhere. He couldn't shake Suriran's lingering gaze from the previous evening. Not with simple gratitude, nor even fleeting suspicion, but a cautious watchfulness. She was still assessing his trustworthiness. He couldn't fault her. He glanced at the heater. Surian was awake, sitting up, knees hugged tightly to her chest. The girl, Alarai, whose name he'd elicited only moments before, remained asleep, face nestled against her mother's side, clutching a fabric scrap as if it were priceless. Surir keenly observed Wesley's movements within the station, yet she remained silent. "Feeling peckish?" he inquired softly, piercing the quietude. "Indeed," she responded after a brief pause, with restrained composure. Wesley pondered if it was an expression of self-respect or prudence, likely a blend of both. He offered her a sustenance bar alongside a modest amount of water. She received them eagerly, her gestures deliberate. Each action appeared calculated, not mechanical, but purposeful, suggesting a past of refined movement deliberately suppressed. Wesley remained by the wall, arms crossed. "What's your story?" he inquired. She paused, thoughtfully chewing. "A work camp lay northward," she eventually replied. Half a decade passed, the decree was sealed. Now only opportunists remain. Looters, bargain hunters, those who linger to salvage the remnants. Wesley's resolve hardened. Whispers of these forsaken locales had reached him. With the Commonwealth's withdrawal, governance crumbled, and numerous outposts fell prey to ruthless warlords and nefarious slaver cartels. The Valari, formerly cherished for their ritualistic duties, captivating voices and graceful presence, transformed into one of the galaxy's most abused populations. They lacked martial prowess. They weren't suited for manufacturing. Their allure was their downfall, rendering them a commodity. "How do you persevere?" he inquired. "We didn't. They ceased providing sustenance, liquidated our domiciles, abandoned our life support. We were discarded like refuse." She delivered the statement with unwavering conviction, as if rehearsed countless times. Wesley dragged a hand down his weary face. "You trekked all that distance?" "I bore her until my strength utterly gave out," she stated, devoid of boastfulness, simply a stark truth. Alarai roused, her gaze meeting her mother's before shifting those luminous eyes towards Wesley. "Your voice resonates intensely," she murmured. "An echoing quality," Wesley observed, startled. Her gentle accent was surprisingly distinct. "My apologies," he mumbled, averting his gaze. Alarai cocked her head slightly. "You rectified the atmosphere, didn't you? The air possesses a fresher scent compared to the encampment." Wesley scrutinized her momentarily. "You perceive such nuances?" She affirmed with a solemn expression. The camp air occasionally caused Mama's throat to bleed. Suririon remained silent, her lips drawn taut. Wesley busied himself at the filtration panel, tweaking the pressure valve almost absently. He hadn't anticipated this complexity, not merely the presence of others, but their rich past and sharp understanding. These weren't just dependent mouths to sustain. They were resilient, clinging to life, scarcely perhaps, yet undeniably present. As the day unfolded, Suriran rose, commencing a hushed cleanup, driven not by duty, but by the need to quell the oppressive quiet. She meticulously arranged antiquated containers, banished soot from the food trays, and assembled shattered filter components into tidy stacks, moving with purpose. As Wesley attempted a rebuttal, she silenced him with a look, stating firmly, "I pledged to assist." He conceded, retreating. Let her manage. The afternoon saw them dining in a hushed unity. The girl, perched cross-legged, delicately sampled a revitalized vegetable ration. She offered no grievance. Suriran, without a word, halved her energy bar, offering the portion to the girl. Post-meal, Alarai ambled leisurely around the relay chamber, her fingers gliding across time-worn wall panels, gently rapping on steel joins. She paused before a sealed door, his dormant pod. "Pray tell, what lies beyond?" she inquired. "Merely my resting place," he responded. She acknowledged. "No lurking horrors concealed?" "None whatsoever." She remained fixated for a moment, then pivoted. As night deepened and the wind howled ferociously, the heater's gentle hum accompanied Wesley's wide-eyed gaze into the abyssal ceiling. He was no longer alone. Two otherworldly, fragile yet tangible beings shared his desolate reality. For years, he'd believed his world had diminished to mere survival and a dying planet. But now, companionship had unexpectedly arrived. People who lived, yearned, inquired deeply. People with vulnerabilities, and he embraced them. He shifted. A flicker of regret threatened to surface, but he suppressed it. Across the room, Surion slept restlessly, one hand protectively on her daughter's back. Even in slumber, she seemed poised for flight. He intimately understood that instinct. But should they persevere, should they opt to remain, it would transcend mere survival. It could evolve into a semblance of genuine existence. The relentless tempest persisted. For 2 unrelenting days, Drexer's heavens remained obscured by dense clouds and lacerating gales. The exterior dissolved into a crimson inferno of swirling dust and crackling energy, solar cells eking out just enough power to keep the heater sputtering. Wesley tightened rations further. Heat, power, even words. But inside, resilience bloomed. He observed Surian kneeling, skillfully coaxing a meager flame from the burner, her hands sure and deliberate. And, retrieving dehydrated root peels from the survival kit, she simmered them alongside protein remnants, concocting a fortifying broth. Alai, close by, sat cross-legged, sketching figures in the dusty ground with a piece of wire. That morning, she remained noticeably reticent, her silence amplified by the wind's mournful wail, as though it stirred deeply buried, painful memories. Wesley re-examined the external pressure seals, then proceeded to the water reclaimer. The metrics remained consistent, yet he instinctively rapped the side panel thrice, a lingering quirk. He pivoted, leaning against the bulkhead, arms crossed, observing them intently. "Ever dabbled in culinary arts?" he queried Surian. "I executed ceremonies for esteemed patrons," she responded, eyes downcast. Cooking wasn't a prerequisite, but adaptability is key to survival. Wesley nodded, absorbing the revelation in silence. The Valari, once celebrated for their grace and sophistication, for their captivating songs, mesmerizing performances, and impeccable diplomatic grace, were a shadow of their former selves. He had never imagined these refined souls reduced to scrounging for sustenance over a decrepit stove. I had always imagined the Valari as cosmic wanderers, dwelling in orbiting havens and opulent pleasure vessels, not terrestrial outposts like this one. Suriran gave the pot a stir. Drexery wasn't our pick. The treaties crumbled, and we were displaced. The Commonwealth craved tranquility, seclusion. Her gaze lifted, piercing. They wanted us nowhere near their freshly drawn borders, not after the conflicts. Wesley locked eyes with her. "You defy my expectations." "So I'm not beaming with gratitude?" she quipped, her tone arid, yet devoid of malice. "I just figured you'd be gone," he admitted. Silence stretched between them. "Likewise," she finally replied. Abruptly, Aleri rose and approached Wesley, extending her palm. Nestled within was a crimson glass cap, salvaged from a shattered censer. "Discovered this beneath the heater," she stated. "Quite alluring, isn't it?" He handled it with exquisite care, rotating it between his nimble fingers. "Indeed, it is." Her gaze ascended to meet his. Then she declared with unwavering solemnity, "Do you believe the tempestuous winds beyond could bisect a person?" Wesley hesitated, then responded, "Unlikely to cleave you, but prolonged exposure could certainly flay your very hide." Alarai offered a deliberate nod, as if archiving the intelligence for future implementation. "Did the war claim your family?" Wesley paused, the question dredging up memories long buried, unspoken for years. "I was stationed beyond the stars when the outer colonies fell," he revealed, his voice tinged with sorrow. "Upon my return, the outposts had vanished. Silence replaced their messages." Surian observed him, quietly swirling her drink. Alarai regarded him with a gentle curiosity. "So, what kept you here?" she probed. "I walked away," he responded. "Sacrificed it all. Just didn't venture far." Alarai appeared to absorb this, returning to her corner, morphing her lines into a mesmerizing vortex. Suririon extended a warm cup of broth to Wesley. "You had the option to deny us shelter," she murmured softly. "The frost outside is merciless." "I suppose I could have," he conceded. pausing to sip his drink thoughtfully. She scrutinized him intently. "So why didn't you?" He simply shrugged. "Just didn't feel like the decent thing to do, to stand idly by as someone's starving right outside." Her tone remained unwavering. The vast majority would have turned a blind eye. "Well, I'm clearly not like most then." A pregnant silence hung between them. Outside, the tempest roared against the metal barriers, causing the relay tower to creak ominously. Cererion eased down, nestling closer to the heater, her legs tucked beneath her. Wesley stayed upright. This evolving dynamic, this shift, felt permanent. He finally gave voice to the question that had lingered since day one. "Exactly how long were you at that camp?" Surion's gaze froze. "Since Alarai's birth." He calculated the span, his mind racing. "That implied a minimum of 5 years. You delivered her there." "In a transport crate," she stated plainly. "They kept a medic on site," she continued, "purely for resale prospects." Wesley averted his gaze, his jaw clenched. "I wouldn't permit them to seize her entirely," she appended. "I even implored a handler once, offering client liaisons if he just left her untouched. I was alluding to singing, yet he misinterpreted my intent. Consequently, I shattered a stim vial against his face and sealed the medbay entrance." Wesley pivoted back to her. "They opted not to terminate you. Replacing me proved too costly, not until the supply chain disintegrated." She tenderly caressed her daughter's hair. Subsequently, sustenance ceased. The electrified barriers deactivated. Some bolted, others lingered, hoping to be picked. I opted to stroll. Her voice was devoid of feeling, just echoing memories. Wesley gazed at her intently. The wind howled fiercely outside. The heater ticked softly. The broth in his hand had chilled. "You're secure here," he eventually stated. She gave a single nod. "We'll remain until we're not." That evening, he generously proposed they utilize his sleep pod for a single night, allowing them respite beyond the stiff bench cushion and thermal wrap. Cererion initially declined. "We're not delicate," she asserted. Yet Alarai was already observing the pod's entrance with hushed intrigue. Wesley extended the override key to her, mentioning it locked from within. Siran accepted it, scrutinized it, then guided her daughter into the snug, cushioned room. Wesley extinguished the hallway light for discretion. He dozed on the cot that night, utilizing his coat as a makeshift blanket, a hand instinctively near his sidearm. Yet uniquely since the intense siege, slumber didn't stem from utter weariness. He merely hovered in a tranquil space betwixt vigilance and solace. Not out of necessity, but because for the first time in ages, his voice wasn't the solitary echo in the abyss. By dawn, the tempest had subsided, yielding an eerie calm that rendered the world preternaturally tranquil. Red dust adhered to every visible surface like a second skin, encasing the solar arrays, wind funnels, and even the crevices of the exterior hatch. Wesley tweaked the breather seals on his jacket and paused at the doorway, surveying the muted horizon. The sky was a dull bronze hue. The wind was eerily still, and the long-range scanner remained stubbornly silent. This was the first break in days. He retreated into the relay station, his voice hushed. "Moving out. Need vital salvage from grid sector 11. Cererion glanced up from her work, meticulously weaving strands of copper mesh into a tighter braid as she knelt by the fractured insulation panel. "Was that ground zero?" "Affirmative." Surprisingly, numerous junctions remain structurally sound beneath the wreckage. Concealed thermal packs may still reside deep within the debris, and my converter gel supply is critically low." He hesitated. An extra pair of eyes would be invaluable. She paused, contemplated briefly, then rose. "I'll accompany you." Wesley shifted his gaze toward the slumbering pod. "She'll be all right unsupervised?" Sura affirmed with a nod. "She's far more secure here than venturing out." Alarai had retreated into a fetal position within the cushioned enclosure. The door parted a mere sliver, revealing the heater across the expanse. She offered little in the way of conversation as her mother drew near. Merely her eyes fluttered open partially, accompanied by a subtle acknowledgement. That sufficed. Barely 20 minutes elapsed. Wesley and Surin stealthily traversed the open field, maintaining a low profile, their cloaks billowing in the dust behind them. Both were equipped with essential breather masks. The landscape presented a desolate panorama of fractured paneling, decimated relay spires, and toppled antenna struts. Relentless winds had partially concealed some debris, while other remnants jutted out at sharp angles, eerily resembling the skeletal remains of a shipwreck. Wesley knelt by a mangled power conduit, wrenching open its housing with a crowbar. Inside, he discovered his prize: thermally shielded conduit wires, remarkably intact. Suririon patrolled with a scavenger's pole, meticulously sweeping the surroundings, her gaze piercing the ridgelines and outcrops. Her stance, taut and focused, radiated resolute control. She had been silent for what felt like ages. "You're awfully quiet," Wesley remarked, still engrossed in his work. She knelt beside him, meticulously cleaning dust from the control manifold. "Silence reveals noises you'd otherwise miss." His focus sharpened. Then he perceived it as well. A faint, rhythmic hum, alien in nature, a low throb. Instinctively they hit the deck. Wesley extinguished his wrist light. Suririon edged closer, shoulder to shoulder, lips whispering. "Slaver Scout," Wesley demurred. "Likely a drone recon unit, though they rarely operate alone these days. More possibly searching for derelicts or remaining survivors." They remained crouched for another minute. The noise faded. Nothing visible above. "Still precarious. There's a derelict service shaft beneath the ensuing ridge." Wesley recalled it was a confined access point. "If we infiltrate, we can patiently hold out." He guided her swiftly through the debris, maneuvering through tight fissures between partitions. They arrived at the entrance, partially concealed by warped supports and rubble. He forced the door ajar, then descended quickly into the gloom, boots grinding against fractured steel. Suririon shadowed him instantly. The interior was utterly dark save for Wesley's dim, wrist-mounted lamp. More a narrow passage than a room, it was choked with aged cable conduits and fire-scorched wall segments. They hugged the wall, breaths restrained. The drone whirred menacingly overhead, drawing nearer this time. Its searching beam carved a narrow arc across the exterior. Wesley pivoted towards her. Absolute stillness, utter silence. They remained huddled together, breathless, shoulder to shoulder, knees brushing. The cramped space precluded any escape from contact. The drone's relentless hum persisted overhead for almost a full minute, then gradually faded, receding into the distance. Frozen in place, Suririon released a measured breath, her voice barely audible. "This isn't your first rodeo." "Far too many," Wesley grumbled. "Patrols thin out yearly, yet survivors become increasingly desperate." She tilted her head almost imperceptibly. "You could have fled upon seeing us. You stood your ground." He met her gaze in the fading light. "As I said, I won't abandon those in need." "But you've witnessed the steep price," she countered. He remained silent. Surion gazed at her hands, bearing the faint scars of past constraints. Wrists chafed raw long since, and imperfectly mended. "You have no comprehension of the sacrifices I've made to safeguard her," she murmured, more to herself than aloud. "The deceptions I've woven, the facade I've meticulously crafted." He scrutinized her intently. In this instant, her frame seemed diminished, vulnerability replacing vigilance, abandoning regal bearing, revealing weary resilience. "Your actions are immaterial," Wesley declared. "Presence is paramount. Her safety is assured. That is all that holds value." She averted her gaze, escaping the harsh illumination. He continued, his tone softening considerably. "There's no need to maintain this facade any longer." A subtle clench tightened her jaw, as if battling an instinctive reaction. Beyond the walls, tranquility reigned once more. As they emerged from the shaft, the sun began its descent. Wesley meticulously scanned the cloudless sky. They retreated carefully, skirting exposed ridges. Inside, Alarai huddled near the heater, hugging her knees. Seeing them return, she rose and silently embraced her mother. "You're so warm," she murmured quietly. "The cryopod turned frigid in your absence." Sura kneeled, forehead pressed lovingly against her daughter's. "We vow to never abandon you again." Silently observing, Wesley then deposited the salvaged components onto the table. Cables, gel packs, and 2 functional heat cells. As night deepened, a faint wind whispered, and shadows danced upon the station walls. Wrapped in a spare cloak, Surarine sought warmth near the heater. Wesley sat opposite her, gently sipping reheated broth. "Are you serious about what you told me?" she inquired. He glanced up. "I mean, you don't need to put on any act." "Absolutely," he affirmed softly. "You're not an object to be owned here. You're not a show to be performed. You're simply, genuinely you." She offered no reply. However, for the first time since her arrival, she permitted herself a moment of repose. Not completely, but sufficiently. Her shoulders relaxed noticeably. Her legs extended with ease. She relaxed, the expected order remaining unspoken. Alarai, across the dim space, was fast asleep, nestled beneath 2 warm blankets, thumb gently pressed against her cheek. The station, despite its age and disrepair, now felt more like a sanctuary than ever before. And for the first time in what felt like ages, Wesley didn't feel utterly alone, a solitary figure on a desolate planet. He sensed the beginnings of something new, something hopeful. Deliberately, meticulously, not driven by necessity, but fueled by volition. Night descended, a frigid blanket against the relay station's metallic shell. The wind hushed, yet the temperature plummeted drastically. Wesley, sleeves hiked up, wrestled with a recalcitrant joint on his jacket's elbow plating. Years of relentless strain had finally shattered the polymer hinge. His previous weld was failing. Across from him, Suriran silently dried the last of the scavenged converter gel canisters with synthetic cloth, her movements noticeably more sluggish tonight. Finally, she let the cloth fall, bracing herself on the table's edge, her gaze lost in the distance. Wesley looked up, concern etched on his face. "Everything okay?" Silence hung heavy in the air. He patiently waited. "I once possessed a name brimming with significance," she whispered, a hint of melancholy in her voice. Prior to this nightmare, before the camps, before mere survival eclipsed the joy of living. Wesley gently placed his tool down, his expression softening with empathy. Do you still? A brittle laugh escaped her lips, devoid of amusement. No, not anymore. Surion is an assigned designation, not my birth name. That was erased during processing, like Ria's mark, a label. Forgotten long ago. She leaned back. What name did you once carry? She hesitated, shaking her head slightly. It's irrelevant, unspoken for ages. I barely recognize it as my own echo. Wesley yielded, allowing the quiet to linger. Surion, at long last, retreated from the table and eased herself into a seat close to the radiator. She curled up, drawing her knees into a comforting embrace. Her eyes glistened, betraying the emotion she fought to suppress. Do you even fathom what it's like to act for so damn long that you lose all sense of authenticity? She uttered. Her voice remained steady, yet the subtle cracks of exhaustion were undeniably present. You beam when they demand. You appear gentle, yielding. You serenade them with song. You endure by ceasing resistance. She swiftly dabbed her eyes, a flicker of shame crossing her face. But the gaze is gone. The commands have ceased. Now, adrift, I seek my true self. Wesley rose, approached deliberately, settling near her. Proximity, yet untouched. You don't need to prove yourself, he murmured softly. Not to me. Not ever again. She remained still for a heartbeat, then tentatively rested against his shoulder, as if gauging whether the touch would shatter her. It didn't. He held his ground. A slow exhale escaped her lips as she closed her eyes. I'm lost on how to simply live, she breathed. His gaze softened as he looked at her. Perhaps that's precisely what we're discovering together. Behind them, an uncharacteristic silence from Russell. Alai stirred awake and padded softly across the floor, her blanket trailing behind. She paused beside them, eyes still heavy with sleep. Are you upset, Mama? She inquired. Suriran glanced up, surprised. Alai edged closer, awkwardly enveloping them both in the blanket. You don't need to be upset anymore, she murmured tenderly. We're cozy. Suririum bit down hard on her lip, nodding faintly as she drew her daughter in for a gentle embrace. Post-Allery's return to the pod, Wesley gravitated back to the workbench. A sharp flare shot through his shoulder as he reached for the jacket once more, causing him to wince. You attempted concealment, yet Suririon perceived, he noted. You're injured. He continued. An old wound, I gather. Suririon paused briefly before unzipping the front of his shirt, signaling, Permit me to examine it. The scar ran profound, a stark impact bruise likely from shrapnel or some weightier force. The surrounding muscle throbbed fiercely, inflamed from excessive strain. Surion cautiously probed it, her fingertips tracing the skin to pinpoint the most intense heat. Her touch was measured, neither detached nor overly familiar, purely intentional. She meticulously cleansed it with purified gel and a pristine cloth. You're neglecting yourself, she observed. I manage. Managing is simply what people do in solitude, he replied. But you're not alone now. Wesley gazed at her, the unspoken words hanging in the air. Neither are you. The silence that followed was profound. No further words were exchanged. Surion nestled closer, a deliberate gesture this time, and he welcomed her presence. For the inaugural instance, the space transcended mere refuge. It embodied the genesis of renewal, forged from devastation. Laboriously, resolutely, yet palpably, powerfully, serenely, vibrantly. A crimson alarm pulsed urgently past the witching hour. Wesley jolted upright from his cot, pure instinct preceding cognitive awakening. He traversed the room in mere strides, scrutinizing the external perimeter scanner. Upper right quadrant, a full 30 meters past the solar array. A fleeting surge of electromagnetic energy. Then nothing. Likely a ghost signal, but Drexer's kill zones were notoriously unforgiving. He donned his jacket, secured his sidearm, and headed for the equipment locker. As he meticulously mounted the scope on his rifle, Suririon materialized beside him, fully dressed and unusually quiet. A recovered knife was strapped to her thigh, and her posture radiated a sharp awareness that had been absent since their arrival. "You picked it up too, didn't you?" she inquired intently. A single contact, fleeting. No transponder signal, likely a scout drone or someone advancing on foot. "These might be my former masters," she stated, her voice devoid of feeling. He froze, pivoting to face her. "Should they arrive, they will not seize her," Suririon declared instantly. Wesley agreed. "We stand our ground for now, unless certainty dictates otherwise." They ventured outside beneath an inky, star-deprived sky, a gentle breeze whispering through the dry, crisp air. Their boots echoed in the dust as they progressed towards the eastern crest. Wesley refined his scope, sweeping the horizon. A subtle disturbance in the dust. Fresh, intentional. Someone traversed this path within the last hour. Footprints too slender for him, exceeding Suririon's. "This transcends patrol," he declared. "It's a hunter." Suririon knelt, examining the imprint. "We're isolated, yet they are adept. No circling. They're etching terrain into their minds. Slaver stock." Wesley fixed her with a stare. "You've witnessed this spectacle previously." "I underwent training to emulate them," she responded, "enabling me to discern moments requiring concealment." The pronouncements lingered, akin to airborne cinders. Returning to headquarters, Alarai had already roused. Perched upon the sleeping pod's precipice, a blanket gathered within her embrace, her feet swaying gently. Upon their entrance, she raised her gaze. "There's a gentleman situated exteriorly," she whispered delicately. "He exudes an aroma reminiscent of copper." Wesley paused abruptly. "Hold on. What was that?" She gave a subtle nod. "He scouted the wall moments ago. I missed seeing him, but the scent is unmistakable." Surir's eyes widened with surprise. "Her heightened senses are even more acute than my own. The desperation has sharpened her perception." Wesley knelt beside the girl, his voice gentle. "Could you discern anything further? Did he utter a word?" She shook her head, her brow furrowed. No spoken words, yet his presence lingers nearby. Wesley rose to his feet deliberately. They lacked comprehensive perimeter security, relying on mere warning lights, camera surveillance, a reinforced door, and a naive trust in seclusion. This proved woefully inadequate. He turned towards Suririon, stating, "We must either reinforce this position or relocate." "Evacuating at night with her is untenable," she responded. "The frigid air would shatter her lungs." "Then we shall mount a determined defense," Suririon affirmed with unwavering resolve. For the coming hour, they navigated the station soundlessly, fortifying the hatch, scrutinizing each vent, and preparing the outer generator to self-destruct remotely. Wesley instructed Suririon on the use of the close-quarters scatter gun. She accepted it without hesitation. Should they breach the primary defense, he warned, act swiftly. Remain silent. I've accomplished far more daunting tasks with far fewer resources, she replied, her voice resolute. Alarai observed them silently from the corner. As Wesley passed, she gently touched his arm. You don't have to perish, she whispered. Not on our account. He knelt beside her, meeting her gaze. I have no intention of doing so. Those who cared always said similar things, she murmured, before they vanished. He paused, then replied, I'm not abandoning you. That's where things diverge. She embraced him abruptly, her arms tightly around his neck. Suririon averted his gaze, blinking back tears. As the first light kissed the horizon, Wesley was perched on the rooftop, meticulously surveying the landscape with his weathered rifle. Though the intruder remained unseen, their presence was undeniable. Etched into a rocky formation was a distinctive symbol, a signal he recognized, used by ruthless slavers to demarcate their claimed dominion. This was no mere coincidence. Someone had tracked them relentlessly from the crash site. He descended, discovering Surion huddled near the heater, hands clasped intensely. I witnessed the mark, he announced. They're not after mere salvage, they're relentlessly pursuing us, she responded. Valari command significant prices, even in poor condition, and humans daring to defend them? Pure entertainment. Wesley began to patrol the floor. Perhaps I could divert their attention. I'll set the generator to overload, igniting the horizon, then flee in the opposite direction. If they pursue us. Absolutely not, she interjected icily. You aren't sacrificing yourself to shield us. That was never the agreement. There is no agreement. Wesley retorted fiercely. This is pure survival. She rose deliberately, her gaze unwavering. I refuse to remain concealed any longer, she declared. Not masked by melodies, not sheltered by stillness. Should they dare to hunt me, they will witness my transformation. Her voice remained steady. Wesley gazed at her, truly seeing her, and recognized the woman who had traversed desolate lands for days, cradling a child, her body bearing the marks of past degradation, yet her spirit unbowed since gracing his home. He then understood this was no longer a mere rescue. It was a formidable alliance. Eventually, as dawn crested the ridge, they stood vigilant by the entrance, weapons primed, the station silent at their backs. Alarai was finally at peace, nestled within the pod, beside a gentle, amber-lit lamp. Suriron gazed intently at Wesley. If this is indeed the finale, she declared, know this. I remained not from a dearth of options. He faced her. Then why endure? Because, she revealed, in your gaze, I felt complete, not diminished. He began to speak, but words failed him. He simply nodded. A tempest brewed outside as they patiently anticipated what was to come. Unbowed, fearless, united. As dawn broke, the oppressor arrived. 0 alerts, utter silence, then a quick anomaly on the sensor, and a ghost slipping by the ravaged relay dish. Through the scope, Wesley pinpointed the figure. Towering, swathed in heat-trapping cloth, face hidden behind a rebreather. He wielded a pulse bow, prohibited, deadly accurate, and noiseless. Yet he was isolated. Wesley ducked, signaling Suririon with 2 fingers. Already poised at the lower hatch, she was intently focused on the outer door, kneeling by the emergency breaker. Composure unwavering, panic absent, Alarai remained concealed within the sleeping pod, completely shrouded by a heavy blanket under the storage bench. Her parting words to Wesley, a haunting whisper, echoed in his mind. "If he dares to take Mama, I will never speak again." Wesley offered no reply. He offered a silent nod, his hand resting tenderly on her head, before softly closing the door. The intruder trespassed into the outer perimeter. Saren's breathing deepened and steadied. She gripped the scattergun firmly against her thigh, poised, as Wesley initiated the control panel sequence. An electrifying jolt ripped through the upper grid, momentarily illuminating the heavens. Non-fatal, yet severely disorienting, an unmistakable premonition. The man dodged, pivoted, lowered himself, disciplined. Certainly not a mere scavenger, undoubtedly slaver lineage. Yet defiance replaced retreat, and he uttered, his voice resonating confidence despite the muffled mask. "You possess unregistered assets." Wesley emerged, rifle poised. "Everything here is mine by right." The man's voice dripped with venom. "I can practically taste the Valari rot from here." He paused, sneering. "That Trey Price girl on her own could keep your miserable little station afloat for half a year." Wesley remained silent, his gaze unwavering. The man advanced menacingly. Instantly, Suririon materialized at Wesley's side, weapon drawn, but held low. "She's not Chattel," Wesley stated, his voice firm. The slaver laughed, a harsh, grating sound. "No, she's garbage, plain and simple. And you're the fool who believes you can polish a turd." He lunged for the bow. Wesley unleashed the initial shot. The bullet struck the man's shoulder, sending him reeling, yet he remained standing. He faltered, raised the bow, but before he could acquire a solid target, Surion advanced swiftly and discharged the scattergun. The full impact slammed into his chest. The slaver collapsed instantly. Utter stillness. Surion, chest heaving gently, gazed down at the lifeless form. Wesley swiftly examined the body. No hidden devices, no tracking signals. A lone operative. The ordeal was concluded. Together, they hauled the corpse beyond the crest and laid it to rest in a crude grave. Words were scarce. Back at the relay, only a soft, lilting voice broke the eerie calm. Enclosed within the pod, Alarai's song resonated. Devoid of articulate language, neither common tongue nor any established trade dialect, it was purely melodic, pristine, melancholic, gentle refrains rebounding from the confines like a breeze, whispering across crystalline surfaces. Suriran's arrival was marked by stillness upon hearing the poignant melody. Instinctively, she harmonized, her voice emanating from the very depths of her being, initially subdued, gradually crescendoing. The melody intertwined exquisitely with her daughter's perfect pitch, embracing and elevating it. Wesley remained captivated at the doorway, observing them. Saren's voice defied all his expectations. It was raw, authentic, not a performance, not mere technique, but pure home. A sound that needed no validation, no desperate plea for survival, simply hers. As the final notes faded, an ethereal stillness enveloped the room. Alarai perched gracefully on the bench, a subtle smile playing on her lips. "Now it truly feels like home," she declared. Wesley approached the console, deactivated the dormant alert system after years of vigilance, and joined them. As dusk settled, they carefully transported the sleeping pod to the heart of the dwelling, while Suri and Cook prepared a nourishing meal, utilizing the remaining root stock and herbs they had discovered. Wesley ingeniously set up a backup battery to power the heater through the entire night. A shared understanding had blossomed between them, rendering words obsolete. That night, Sirat nestled closer to Wesley than ever before, armor shed, replaced by serene intimacy. "You can cease guarding the doorway," she murmured. "Understood," he responded softly. She gently leaned her head upon his shoulder, finding solace in his presence. Alarai ascended to the bench, nestling into her mother's cloak. As slumber beckoned, she murmured, "You didn't rescue us. We discovered you." Wesley offered a gentle smile. Beyond the wind softened its caress, and since the outer rim's fall, the future ceased being a chase. It blossomed into a shared creation. The ensuing days unfolded serenely. The ridge remained silent, transmitting no further signals. The dust bore no new footprints. Sensors remained dormant. Storm-laden skies ceded to a muted, burnished azure. For the first time in months, Wesley ventured outdoors, his sidearm conspicuously absent. Within the relay station, a subtle metamorphosis began, gradual and pervasive. Gradually, the solitary workbench transformed into a vibrant communal table, hosting 3 bowls at each repast. The sleeping pod was ingeniously refashioned into a cozy corner alcove beside the radiant heater, yielding enhanced room, abundant blankets, and luxurious warmth. Alarai had enthusiastically adorned the walls with vibrant wire remnants and circuit caps, meticulously arranging them into captivating spirals and celestial patterns, declaring it aided her retention of cherished memories. Wesley devoted his mornings to maintaining the solar array, meticulously inspecting cells and patching vent lines. He'd ceased activating the perimeter alert during the day, swayed by Suririon's reasoning. "If danger approaches, we'll spot it ourselves," she'd asserted. "Until then, conserve your energy instead of chasing shadows." She, too, had undergone a transformation. The rigidity in her stance had eased, not from diminished vigilance, but from a newfound ability to not anticipate suffering at every turn. Now barefoot, she graced the relay station floor, savoring its gentle warmth against her skin. Evenings found her meticulously untangling her hair, silvery strands flowing freely with each touch. A newfound radiance had returned. As night descended, the generator's hum softened, and the winds whispered secrets. Wesley would join her by the comforting glow of the heater. Certain evenings they conversed, others they simply existed together, in comfortable quiet. One particular night, wordlessly, Suriran guided his hand and rested it softly upon her heart. She averted her gaze, allowing him to sense the steady beat as he held on. Alai, ever observant, maintained her rituals, now assisting with broth preparation, tidying tools, and engaging Wesley with peculiar, incisive inquiries during electrical repairs. Why don't celestial bodies plummet? Do automatons experience solitude upon deactivation? Will I metamorphose into a fundamentally distinct individual, or merely an enlarged version of myself? He lacked flawless solutions, yet she remained unperturbed. One dusky afternoon, nearing twilight, Wesley discovered Sirian outdoors. She was standing shoeless at the solar array's perimeter, enveloped in his antiquated thermal outerwear, her lustrous hair capturing the waning luminescence. He approached and maintained silence. After a pause, she whispered, "I never imagined feeling warmth again. Not physically, deep inside." She touched her heart softly. "You've rekindled a belief I thought I'd lost forever." He gazed at the horizon, the setting sun painting long shadows across the ruined towers. In the quiet, he reflected on their incredible journey, not just in miles, but in the immeasurable connection they now shared. "Suryan, you didn't merely endure, you revolutionized this place, transformed me. A profound metamorphosis." She faced him, voice hushed. "Would expressing my affection feel peculiar, even if my articulation lacks the finesse you possess?" Wesley, unfazed, met her gaze with serene composure. "Express it authentically," he urged. Drawn nearer, she nestled against him, foreheads aligning. Alarai's shout echoed from the station entrance. "Dinner's charring, folks!" Suriran chuckled, a genuine soft sound. Side by side, they returned. That evening, bathed in gentle amber light, the trio gathered intimately on the floor, savoring their modest fare: broth, flatbread, and roasted roots. Afterward, nestled in her mother's embrace, Alai drowsed, thumb near her lips. "Will we be here eternally?" she murmured. Surir gently stroked her daughter's back. "No," she whispered. "Someday, we might venture out, but solely by choice, not necessity." Alari nodded, succumbing to sleep. Wesley surveyed their humble abode. The corroded walls, the mended wires, the heater's gentle thrum beside them. And then, a revelation. It wasn't a mere survival outpost. It was a sanctuary, a genuine haven. The charade was over. The endless wait for salvation, abandoned. Just 3 souls, embraced by warmth, brimming with contentment, and ultimately, irrevocably liberated, the end.